This is it. Marnie Glickman is with me here. We are hosting this new idea that we have, Hopkins Class of '88 web show, podcast, Fruit for the Masses, right?
Vlogcast? No.
We're inventing a new genre of media here.
Perhaps. But I was looking at the yearbook and I was reading about K-Hop TV in 1988.
K-Hop TV. I don't have many memories of K-Hop TV, but I do remember that it existed. So.
And K-Hop TV still exists. Oh, I see some attendees are joining us.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Nice. They're popping in. Welcome. Chuck Giastra, Michelle Grover, I believe that is. I don't know which Mike that is. Maybe Mike Case. He was RSVPing. Sam Sigelman. All right.
No way.
So we're going to start the show for real in a second, but if you want to participate, please enter your thoughts in the chat or by question. You can enter questions. We welcome everything. Marnie and I are going to chat here for a little bit, and then we're going to answer your questions and address the topics that you think are important. Marnie, you are joining us from?
I'm in San Rafael, California, about 18 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge. Are you still in Madison?
I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm in Central Time. You're in Western Time.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold here in Madison, but it is most likely delightful in San Rafael. Is that how you say it? San Rafael?
Good enough for me.
All right.
I studied Russian, not Spanish.
Yeah, right.
It's amazing. There's 6 people here.
I love it. Welcome, everyone. Jenny, we're going to refer to people by their maiden name, I think, right?
I think so. Unless
Jenny
there's
Anderson.
a rebellion in the chat room.
Oh, really? I have to call it the chat. All right. So, all right, Marnie, here we go.
Okay.
What is, briefly as you can, what have you been up to since high school?
Briefly?
Yeah, in a few minutes.
Well, I am a lawyer. I recently served on our local school board here in California. I've been raising ruckus with different progressive nonprofit organizations, and I take care of 3 future world leaders and 4 feral cats.
You hoard feral cats?
No, I take care of them.
You take care of them. Okay.
Well, it's hoarding 4.
You have 4.
Mm-hmm.
Do they stay with you the whole time, or do they come and go?
They mostly stay because they like the slimy, wet food.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's funny. That might be, before we turned this on, we were talking about the most surprising thing that you've done since high school. And
yes,
the fact that I own a cat is sort of surprising to me, but it's not very interesting.
Is there anything interesting you want to share with the 9 attendees? Surprise us. Have you been to jail?
Crazy. I have not. I have not. And I've not really had any run-ins with law enforcement either since college. So that was pretty penny ante stuff. What about you? Have you been in jail?
No, I was offered the chance to serve in jail.
Yeah.
I was working for a candidate in California who was running for governor, and she was excluded from a debate. So we got tickets and tried to walk in, and they said we were not allowed because we were not invited. And they asked us if we wanted to go to jail, and I said no, and my candidate said yes. So they took her in a back room and handcuffed her, the private security guards.
But did they, and then because you were like staffing her, did you have to then get her out?
Good question. I had to try and spring her out, but it was a private security guard company at a private university, and so she had no constitutional rights that we could figure out. So she stayed tied up in San Rafael, California for about 18 hours.
Wow. All right, so right before we started this too, you teased me with, you indicated the cello behind you, and you said that you had been on tour with Neil Young.
Oh, that was surprising. I didn't.
Were you a member of Crazy Horse, or was this a
Good
different-
question. I would say one of the most exciting things that I've done is I was managing a choir, the Stop Shopping Choir, and we booked, we got offered a tour spot opening for Neil Young and Willie Nelson's sons, Promise of the Real. So we were in New York, Oregon, Washington, California, and it was my only rock star moment in my whole life.
That's pretty crazy. You were part of that. It was like a performance art group or so of some sort, right? Political minded.
It was. I see some people talking. They're chatting. They're more interested in each other. I totally get it.
No, Sam Siegelman gets right to the point. So let's just back up here for a second. We're hosting this show, Marnie and I. We're going to feature guests from our class every week. This is just the pilot, so we're interviewing each other. So we'd like you to recommend guests. We'd like you to throw commentary and questions into the chat, which we'll address.
Yes.
And yeah, we're going to try to do this like every Tuesday night live here, but then Zoom allows you to save the video and save the audio. So we're going to make a podcast out of it. And maybe we'll post YouTube videos to the class Facebook page and stuff.
Sounds good. Well, I see the first question from the chat room, and it's for you, Jason, from Sam Siegelman.
Go ahead, fire away.
When are you going to discuss engaging in illicit drugs?
Yeah, that's a good question. Episode 3.
Thank you. Other questions, just put them in the chat room.
Right. Okay, so we've covered Marnie's tour with Neil Young.
Yes.
That's amazing. So you said you're 18 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge, but you're not in wine country there, or are you?
No, I'm
Okay.
halfway between the city and wine country. And it's basically like Stepford World. There's ladies with big sunglasses wearing Lycra every day, and it's nothing like Minnesota.
Okay.
Is Madison like Minnesota?
Madison is very much like Minnesota, except people here have a thing about, Wisconsin being way better than Minnesota, and I keep trying to disabuse them of that notion. But I've been here for, I came to school here at the UW, and I've been here since high school graduation effectively, with short stints in other places, but never really living anywhere else. You remember you tried to convince me to move to Portland once?
Probably.
Remember that? I was pretty serious. I actually thought that I would move to Portland, but I didn't. 2 friends of mine did, and I did not. But I lived in Chicago very briefly, and Milwaukee very briefly. Yeah, Madison is great. I love it here. There are a lot of Hopkins people here. From our class, I know that Mark Lamp lives here, and Todd Steiner lives here. I don't think I've ever run into Mark Lamp. I run into Todd Steiner every little while. And I meet a lot of people who are not our age, but went to Hopkins High School here. It's pretty amazing. The newspaper I used to work for, which was a small alternative weekly newspaper called Isthmus, at one point there were 4 of us on staff who were from Hopkins High School.
That's so weird. Well, that was my question I had for you. When I think of you in high school, I think of you on the school paper. Were you on the school paper? Or am I having some hallucination?
I was on the school paper.
The Royal Page?
The Royal Page.
See, I remember. So here's my question.
So stay tuned, everybody, because I have trivia questions in a little bit.
Okay,
we're going to try to stump Marnie.
Left.
That's not one of the questions, but that is a good question.
Thank you. Here's my question.
I was on the Royal Page. I was not good at it. I had a hard time meeting deadlines. I didn't take it seriously. But it was pretty fun. I remember there were a few, that show was run by women. Catherine
Everything's run by
Jensen.
women.
I'm going to just name some names. I love naming names from high school because people laugh when you name names from the past. Katherine Jensen, Melissa Tilton. Yeah. Jackie LaRue. I think Jackie LaRue.
Yes, Jackie LaRue.
Yeah.
Where are they now? Should we find them for a show?
That's the thing. Everybody should know this. We're going to try to, our challenge with this show is we're going to try to track down the untraceable names from our past and get them on the show.
I have a question for the chat and the audience. Tell us in the chat, who do you want us to go find? Who do you want us to interview?
We're really interested in the people that no one has seen. Oh, Chris Lee. Yes.
Chris Lee. Yes.
Chris Lee. I feel like Chris Lee is probably easy to find, but it will be tough to convince to come on the show. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a great name, Jenny, that we did not think of. Kyle Smith is here. Outstanding. So Chris Lee, that'll be great. That's exactly who we're looking for.
I heard you've been finding some long lost classmates. Didn't you find someone recently?
I have. Many people will be surprised to know this, but I tracked down Chris Arney, who has been absent from all reunions and all casual get-togethers, mainly because she's been living in Africa and the Middle East, like Jordan. So I don't want to blow her cover.
No.
I'd have to ask her permission first, but I have tracked her down. She does live back in the States now and is doing very well.
Well, I was thinking it might be fun to have our student body president and vice president together, David Book and Jason Crow. Do you think that's a good idea?
Right. Okay, so you know Book. You have dined with Book recently?
Yes. He lives in Oakland.
He lives in Oakland, not super far from you, but.
Oh, I see Matt has Crow's number.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay, we're gonna get this from you, Hockett, because we want to get Crow and Book on at the same time, right?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
So
any other idea?
Tell us about. Yeah, tell us about Book. What's he up to, and what did he have to say?
Well, he's teaching writing in Oakland, but I think he should speak for himself. He taught my daughter a music lesson last week. They're writing a song, and he asked if he could start a band with her.
I love that. Is very surprising.
Like surprising. Well, guess what? Our show is almost over. Let's do it.
Well, we have still plenty of show left, but. Okay. Is it time for the lightning round?
I don't know. I think so.
Right, it's time. I'm just going to call it. It's time for the lightning round.
Okay, thank you.
I have trivia questions for Marnie. I think people should feel free to answer these in the chat. So yeah. Marnie, you have to just promise that you're not going to look at the chat to try to come up.
Okay, I'll turn off the chat.
All right. Question 1. In the Hopkins High School cafeteria, an elderly gentleman basically put up with a lot of our crap, bus dishes. I don't even know if it's fair to say that he kept order, but he was sort of like an unofficial high school mascot. Elderly gentleman worked in the cafeteria. Do you remember this guy? Do you remember his name?
I think he only liked boys.
What do you mean he didn't like to?
I didn't know him. He never gave me a look. I cleared my own.
But you remember him, right? You remember the presence of him? You don't remember him?
No, not creepy old men. No. Do you? Does anyone?
Yes. His name was Roy Andreessen, and the reason why I know his last name, I think everybody knew Roy. I think the reason why I know his last name is because he was social friends with my grandmother. He and his wife were like bridge, and they would go on outings and out to dinner and stuff with a group, and my grandmother was part of that group. She was very proud of being friends with Roy, and she would always tell me to say hello to Roy. So yeah, Roy Andreessen, okay? We're getting some people in there. They totally remember Roy. Red flag, only liked boys. All right, Roy and Jason.
I've been watching some really bad comedy during the quarantine. Forgive me, everyone.
All right, you're 0 for 1. Question number 2. Back in the cafeteria. Large art installation on the wall of the cafeteria of Hopkins High School. Can you describe it?
No.
Do you don't remember anything about it?
I'm being honest. Was there like a lion involved?
No. It was like an evocation of youth, sort of. I don't know if you would describe it as pop art. I think you could describe it as pop art.
Is it still there?
Big script letters, 3 words written, massive on the wall. It's no longer there, by the way. I was there like 4 or 5 years ago to see a basketball game, and it wasn't there anymore. No?
No.
Jack Loves Nancy, I think is what it said. Do you remember this?
No. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, Pocket gets it. Sam Siegelman close.
We should give out prizes next week.
Jack Loves Nancy. That it was like the thing that you would like when you were in like 8th or 9th grade and you went to the high school, you were like, whoa, that's serious. Like they've got a big old piece of pop art. I Googled it. I can't find any mention of it on Google. And so I wonder what happened to it. It was big.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like a real piece of artwork. Like so, it was made out of like, not neon, but like tubes. So it looked like it was painted on the wall, but it was actually 3-dimensional. 0 for 2. All right, homecoming trivia, right?
Okay.
So during high school, during our homecoming, we always had a dance, and we typically hired like a pretty significant rock band from the Twin Cities to play at those dances.
Yes.
The same band played our sophomore and junior years, and then we had a different band that played our senior year. Can you name either one of those bands?
Well, in my mind, in the legend of Hopkins High, I tell people it was Husker Du. No.
No, which never would have been allowed.
Okay, well that's the myth of my Hopkins
But
High.
true, that's fine. You can represent that out in Northern California.
The Todd Ames Blues Band in Review.
That was, I think they played different, not a homecoming.
Okay, a warm-up band.
Marnie, you were on student council with me. We had a budget for homecoming. We forked out cash.
I've been drinking too much kombucha out in the West.
So you don't have a guess.
Suburbs, how cool.
The suburbs, yes.
Was it
Suburbs? Yeah. The suburbs played sophomore and junior year. Can anyone guess the senior year band? They at the time I liked them better. But no, the Wallets.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a good band.
That was a good band. The lead singer I think recently passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, well
I think one or two guys from the suburbs have passed away. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a lightning round question. Who can name people who were inside the Lions mascot at games?
I know that you were in at least once. I recall you being the lion at least once.
You have a better memory. Who else was in it? I don't know anyone else. Chris Lee?
I recall Michael Sage being in it.
Perhaps.
I was in it once.
You were?
Yeah. And it was not a good time because you can't wear your glasses inside that thing.
Oh. I didn't get glasses until I was in law school.
Katie Keene is on. Her brother, Bill Keene.
Good.
I believe Katie, you'll have to tell us. Bill was 2 years older than us, maybe. I think he was the most famous lion. I remember him being the lion a lot, and he had a great personality for it.
Well, I have a question for you. And So here we are. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to remind you, this is our first try at in-depth weekly interviews. This week is just me and Jason. Next week, we're taking suggestions. We're going to interview 1 or 2 people at a time. Don't worry, you don't have to listen to me and Jason alone every week. So I have a question for Jason, and please in the chat, please help me ask Jason all the questions you've wanted to ask him for 35 years. So my question, Jason, is, when you were on the Royal page, did you want to be a journalist for your profession?
That's a good question. I thought that what would be kind of fun would be to go into broadcast journalism, to work on TV or radio. Mm-hmm. See, this is, so Sam's on the list. Sam's on the call here. We should have Sam on. Sam worked in professional radio for a while. And Sam, like I, worked for college newspapers, which was great. So, but no, working at the Royal Page, I thought it was going to be a fun, easy class. And it was pretty fun and it was pretty easy. But no, I did not think I was going to go into print journalism at that point.
And so maybe people don't know Jason's in print journalism. So how did you go from the Royal Page to working in print journalism in Madison?
So when I was in school here, I started working on the University of Wisconsin has 2 student daily newspapers, and I went to work for one of them. But it wasn't until I was a junior, and again, I think I just did it because I thought it would be fun.
Yeah.
And it was really fun, but I really loved it, and I got and it's sort of like the kind of thing where the more interested you get in it, the more you want to write, and they will just keep sucking you in and giving you stories to write if you want them. And so it was called the Badger Herald. We printed every day when I was in college. It was a 20,000 circulation paper, so it was very big, and it was very satisfying because you would go into like a lecture hall, and half the lecture hall would be sitting there with their Badger Heralds open reading. You could look over people's shoulders as they were reading your articles, which was great. And you could do whatever you wanted. You could write. I covered state politics, but I also covered the Badger hockey team. So that was great. And I made some really good friends there. And I got really sort of, addicted to, hey.
I see someone. Who is that?
Special guest.
Who is in your house?
Are you in the middle of?
Yeah, we're making a show.
Hello, I'm Marnie.
This is my wife, Noelle. She just got home from work. There's people watching.
Hi.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you.
That's my friend Marnie. Special guest Noelle Johnson. We should try to program this, Marnie. We're a special guest every week.
Oh, yes, I'm sure I will have some weird feral cats and children coming in soon.
So anyway, that was what I wanted to do after college,
Yeah.
Go into journalism professionally. It took me a little while to crack through. But now I work for a newspaper called the Capital Times.
And what are your beats?
I'm the city editor, so I don't cover anything specifically myself. I supervise reporters who cover state government, city government, the University of Wisconsin, some general assignment stuff. Right now, everybody covers COVID-19.
Well, that's funny. There's a question for you about COVID-19 in the chat.
Oh, is that right? I missed that one.
There is. We're taking questions for everyone. Yeah. So the question is, oh, it's way up here. Oh yeah, it's from Michelle Grover Castelich. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. It's so Jason, have you been out in public getting COVID-19?
No, I work from this room.
Work in this room?
And yeah, it's a constant conversation that we have with our reporters who don't want to go anywhere really, that don't want to be in groups. Our whole job is going places where there are lots of people and talking to people. And so since like March 17th, none of us have really been doing that. So that's been a huge bummer, but it's also been kind of interesting to deal with that. So we don't really have to do that. Luckily, most of it, like I covered them. Well, I sat in on a city meeting last night and it was all on Zoom. So
a Zoom meeting. You're all Zoom?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's in many ways like your challenge, having children in your house, teenagers who want to go places, right, and be with their friends, and you have to lock them down, right?
Well, that's why I thought it was the perfect time to start this crazy experiment when we're all locked in our houses.
Yeah. It's it sucks.
It sucks. Okay, more questions for Jason and me. We have 5 minutes left. Questions and suggestions for
Chris
the next.
Chris Clott in the house. All right, I was wondering who this Chris was. So we've got Michelle Grover, Matt Hockett, Katie Keene, Sam Sigelman, Jenny Anderson, Chris Clott, Chad Alt,
Chad Alt.
and Brad Jones is in as well. And I think Brad Jones also lives in Northern California. Brad, you'll have to
I think he might live near me.
weigh in on the chat. This is great to see all of you here again.
Okay, I see a question.
Yeah.
This one's easy. Thank you, Sam. Even I can remember this. Jason,
Yeah.
who was your favorite teacher in high school and why?
All right, I want you. Do you have a ready answer for this?
I have two.
Okay, go. Give one now, and I'll. Because I think you and I might
Okay,
have the
my
same.
first one, Mr. Bouchard, because he took us to France. And going to Europe for the first time, we got tear gassed in the subways. We drank wine that cost like 99 cents a bottle. We vomited. It was so fun. Life-changing. How about you?
Plus, I sort of feel like Mr. Bouchard had a lot of things going on the side. Like he was not just a teacher, right? He was like a real estate agent. Didn't he and Mr. Hutton have a side business or something?
I don't know.
Anyway, that guy he was pretty he was like the perfect guy to teach French, right?
Sure.
Monsieur Bouchard. All right. All my favorite teachers are sort of the obvious ones. I like Mr. Mossberg. I like the teachers that I think of to this day were Mr. Mossberg and Mr. Avalon.
Of course.
Both passed. Mr. Wedding, so social studies and English. I'm trying to, who we should talk about as our least favorite.
I like
You think that's fair game?
I guess so. For the last few minutes, over on favorite teachers, one of our ideas, everyone, is to ask Ramon Reyna, one of the guidance counselors, if he would come on for an interview. If anyone thinks that's a good idea, just let us know.
Yeah, I think we definitely want it. Ramon was one of my favorite people and still in touch, although not regularly, but still in touch today. So, the woman who taught newspaper, Mrs. Bond, was very cool. Yeah, that's tough. I wish I had a surprising answer for that.
I just blocked out the bad parts. To be
Mr.
really
Williams, theater director, I didn't have him for any classes. He became an assistant principal who handed out discipline, and a lot of people didn't like him, but I thought he was pretty funny.
Well, I'm seeing some really good suggestions. Jason and I have talked about adding some other ideas to future shows. Like, I don't know if any of you have seen Kyle Hansen's photography on Facebook. He's been publishing some amazing black and white photos. Jason, did you ever get in trouble? Did you at school?
I did get in trouble. I don't remember exactly what it was for, but again, because I'm not saying anything surprising when I say that I was pretty much a rule follower and pretty much a nerd in high school. And so I recall getting in trouble and having to sit in Mr. Roof's office. And it was just for being a jerk in the mall or something like that, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I just remember him coming in and saying, like, you know better than this. I don't ever want to see you in here again. And, I was super scared and whatever. I was not a rebel at all.
No.
Did you get in trouble?
I never got in trouble at school, but the biggest trouble I ever got in was in elementary school. Andrea Haskevitz, we were 12, and she came over with a package of cigarettes, And we went to the park.
To your house?
Yeah. And
Oh,
we
she didn't
walked,
bring them to school. She brought them to your house.
yeah. And we walked to the park in Golden Valley, lit my first cigarette, and then we see the sirens and the cops driving up onto the lawn. And they put us in the car and they take me home and they knock on the door and give my mom a ticket before they drive Andrea home. So we shut the door and my mom's like, "I'm so proud of you." And she put it on the fridge.
That's great.
Different
And
parents.
Matt Hockett is on here, and Matt and I were in Boy Scouts together, and the merit badge that we both earned, but isn't a real merit badge, is basically smoking whatever is available. That's what you do in Boy Scouts.
Okay, we'll have to.
Someone's bringing stuff to smoke, and yeah.
We'll have to have a show just with the Eagle Scouts and the Eagle Scout wannabes. But I think we should respect everyone's time since it's
Yes.
5:30.
A half an hour flew by. We'll be back here next Tuesday. We will announce our guest on Facebook. And holy crap, I can't believe that 9 people showed up for this. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. This is an experiment, so just send us your ideas, questions, volunteer to be grilled by me and Jason. Our idea is that we would have 2 guests on at the same time each week. And so, it would be maybe you and someone you want us to find, a recluse. So we can be surprising, and we'll post the recordings, and thanks a lot. Hey!
Yeah. All right. And on that note,
Yeah. Bye.
bye. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Bye.
next
Next
week.
week.
Tell all your friends.
K-Hop.